Hello and welcome to the UCM Podcast. I'm the host for today, Tony Hook, and with me, joining me on this epic episode is Dr. Bill Henry of In Touch Chiropractic in Ocean, New Jersey. Did I get that right, Doc?
Yes, you did.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Well, Tony, it's great to be here. It's an exciting time, and you just give me a direction that you would like us to talk about.
All right. Well, we were chatting a little bit before, going on the recording here and sharing about,
Okay.
and I was even reading on your website just some of the things you've done over the years, and there's been a journey there, right? And you've been shared about the journey of, when I first started working at age 9, doing this and that, and just I was here and now I'm out here, and there's
Right.
life is like that, right? And there's and I for on a personal side, like how I got into, the upper cervical world. There's a journey, there's a story there, right? And as it impacted me. And so I find that no matter what, though, I'm trying to follow my sense of purpose. I'm trying to follow up my passion, right? And, what is congruent with who I am and what I'm meant to do. And I think that is important for the chiropractor today and has always been important, right? Because you're serving. And so I wanted you just to share a little bit about that that journey, the inspiration that goes behind that, and then what the place of passion and purpose, and really dialing that in.
Okay. Let's start with my father. My father was probably the greatest athlete of his time that I ever knew. And I spent a lot of time with my dad doing a lot of different things. And then all of a sudden, he started becoming ill. And I I'll get over this moment. He he ended up with lymphatic cancer and a tumor around his spine that paralyzed him. I spent a lot of time with him then too, nights and nights and nights.
Yeah.
But before he got paralyzed, I would go sometimes to the medical doctor with him. And you know how we, especially I think chiropractors, we feel people, we feel the essence between that person and us, and we get a drift of who they are and what we're about. Well, I would get that drift when I went into the medical doctor's office with my dad. And when he came out, there was no difference in his energy. And I'm going, why is he going into this guy? He's not getting any better. Every now and then we would drive about 100 miles up into the mountains in Northern California. And we would get back on these little roads where you couldn't have two cars drive past each other unless one was parked. And you'd find a half mile either side of a driveway loaded with automobiles. And you'd walk down into this little shack, mountain shack, and there's people sitting everywhere. And I was so interested in watching people and how they walked and what was going on that I never went inside, which is unfortunate, but also fortunately because that growth right there really impacted me and developed a passion in me about people and helping people. It turns out, and I found this out years and years later, that the person he was seeing was known as the goat doctor. And there's a wonderful
Okay.
book out called The Goat Doctor of the Sierras. He, some people claimed he was a chiropractor, and he actually did go to chiropractic school one time, but he got so upset with the education they were giving him compared to what his innate was showing him what to do that he quit going to chiropractic school. And he just continued doing what he was doing. People would travel from all over the world to see this man. Now, get to that point. When my father went in there, he had this negative energy. When he came out, he was different.
Hmm.
He had a brilliance about him. And I'm going, what has happened? Right? Oh God, I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry. Anyway, it started for me, I think, what what turns out to be the rest of my life. This interest in people and how do we help? I can remember sitting in my grandfather's garden one day after my father passed away at the young age of 42. And I was looking at my hands and I said, I don't know what these hands are supposed to do, but there's
Mm,
something really important for us.
mm,
Okay. Sometime after that, I would go to chiropractors and acupuncturists. I didn't like medical doctors, so I was always getting into these ancillary things. And one day, something happened, and I wasn't getting any help. But I knew I wanted to go to chiropractic school. I decided on that. I drove by. It was really funny because I drove by on one of the back roads in this little town of Wheatland, California. There was a chiropractic sign right on the road. Chiropractic adjustments, $5. Now we're talking 40s and 50s. I'm 82. I'll be 83 years old here in a couple of months. All right. So I've got a long life of this thing growing. Now, I didn't know what a chiropractor was at that time, but there was something about the thoughts, the energy that drove me on. So
mm.
I ended up being a school teacher for 15 years. And then I needed more money. I was raising a family, so I went in the real estate business. But all the time I'm studying. That's where Touch for Health, which talked about the energy of the body and that I took that course one weekend. I was hooked and I spent a lot of my time taking care of people that way. But I always wanted to go to chiropractic school. I was driven to that.
Right.
So finally, and in 1966, I was first accepted to chiropractic school. My kids are 1 and 3. I can't do this. And so I would get reaccepted every 2 or 3 years. And then, because of the passion within me, because of the people that I was meeting, I finally went to school 20 years later.
Oh my gosh.
And I was single by then. And so I was 46. I'm in with all these 20-year-olds, and I'm having a ball. One day, I was going into a histology final, and one of my roommates who had also he was involved in different martial arts. I was a judo guy. We threw our shoulders in. I couldn't walk. It was shuffle like this, and then to go
Mm.
into a histology final. Everybody was trying to help me. But what were we doing in first term? This is your ear. This is
Yeah,
your
right.
nose. Right? And so, but one of the guys that was lived in that house said, "You got to go get your atlas zeroed." I said, "What the hell is that?"
What's that?
I
Yeah,
didn't
and why?
know. Yeah. And so anyway, he gave me a phone number of Dr. Alvin Detloff in Southern California. And I called him up and he said, "Come on over." Shuffling. He does x-ray on me, does an exam on me, he says, "Come on." He says, "Lay here on your back." And he takes an instrument and touches me extraordinarily lightly. I hear click, 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 click. You know what? My thought was, what a scam this guy's got going, right?
I thought the same thing. I
And
thought the same thing.
okay, and then I said, I thought, boy, am I glad that he's taking care of me for free because I'm a student. He said, "Okay, we're done. Come down." He always did a post X-ray. By the way, he was in that same group with the what was it, Grostic guys that
Mhm.
with L.A. Dr. Sweat.
Okay, right.
Okay. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Sweat at one time. I went out there. But was sat at the end of the table. And as I stood up, these were my exact thoughts. This came from something I could barely feel in the right place at the right time, handled by a man who knew what he was doing. I went, oh my God, I am different. I'm more different than I've ever been in my life. And then
Switched
I
on.
walked down the hallway. I said, this gentleman knows something that nobody else I've ever gone to knows.
Yeah.
And I spent all my free time in school in his office.
Yeah.
Just working side by side with him. And the other thing that I was blessed with is that he said to me right at the end of our first term, he said, do you want to go to Mexico and adjust people with me? I said, I don't know how to adjust. He says, and I said, teach me. I said, I'll teach you. Well, we were in Mexico in upper part. I forget where we go. California something. I forget what it is. But I watched him adjust a couple people and I was amazed at what he was doing. And so then he said to me, okay, right here. He says, you know the anatomy. I know you're that AK guy, Touch for Health guy. He says, shoot for the opposite eye. I said, okay. Man, this was an atlas that just exploded twice on this young kid. I said, okay, Doc, you and I go over here. These two interns that were there, you guys are here. Now, you got to understand, at that time, I'm 46 years old and nobody else is that old around me, with the doc and the other guys. So I just did my normal thing. And that first day, I adjusted 125 people, all upper cervical.
Wow.
Just by what he taught me. It was amazing. Anyway, so I spent, and I was blessed, I spent probably once every 5 weeks in Mexico adjusting people, going from one little village to another little village, going into the Tijuana garbage dump with the garbage trucks going by 20 feet away while you're adjusting people. And I did that for 3 years. And then when I graduated, my wife, by the way, Barbara, I took a lot of my classmates up there with me. And then Barbara came back to New Jersey. And what am I going to do now on my weekends? And Dr. Detloff had turned the whole program over to me in 8th term. And so I just kept going. And then Barbara left after we graduated. And so I did something purposeful. See, I was always driven with purpose. And the thing that I was purposeful about was I'm going to Mexico 3 weekends a month. And I did that for a year.
And for just a second, let me jump in. So what was driving you? I mean, obviously you had, you knew that this is something you wanted to know more about once you experienced the life-changing power of, innate putting you back where you need to be, the adjustment, right? The adjustment and your body's doing what it's designed to do. Beautiful. You're like, I want to do this. But then what made you want to now, I guess you could say serve? I mean, you're really talking about serving others.
Yes. First of all, I think that's a natural thing within me. Okay. For the way that I was raised. But then now I got the nugget. I got the jewel. The jewel is helping people by just talking. And I mean, just adjusting their neck, because that's basically all the time we had when we were down there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were so thick with people, I had to move kids out of the way to go from one end of the table to the other. I loved it. And I'll finish that story with this to show how people understand what you're doing. My last day, when I told the interpreter that I'm leaving, this is my last trip. Every village, she told that story. The women encircled me and sang songs to me and saying prayers to me. I mean, I didn't want to leave, right? You're in this
Yeah. Yeah.
mixture of people that are so thankful that you brought in something that was making such a
Yeah.
difference in their life,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Uh,
think, I mean, that's, and when it comes down to it, like, that's what we're doing here. Changing lives,
yes,
right? Helping people to live their best life by giving. You're sharing, you're giving,
exactly.
you're right?
So I'm going to tell you one story that is so impactful about one of the trips. I was asked, I was working in the bed of a creek bed that was dried up. And the interpreter came to me and she said, this woman came and wants to know if you can come up to her house and check her son, her small son, who has never walked in his life. I said, let's go. So we walk up into these little tiny shacks. You have to, chickens are all over inside the house. There's one bed, no sheets, no blankets. I walk in on a 14-year-old kid in spastic paralysis, laid
Mm,
on the bed. I'm thinking I'm going to see a 2-year-old or something, right?
yeah,
And then all of
right,
a sudden I
right.
see this 14-year-old kid. I had one of my friends, Dr. John Harmon, who is in Boise. Anyway, and his sons were there. We've got this one on video. That's what was really, I didn't know what's going on. But I would check him. I had to pick him up and drag him over to the edge of the bed. Anyway, so I check him, I adjust him. I have John check him and adjust him. We left. A month later, my now wife, Barbara, was down in Mexico with me. We went to the same part of the village. I said, let's go up and check on that boy. We go up there and I say to the interpreter, would you ask her what changes, if any, she has noticed in her son? Her mother started to quiver. Tears started to come out from her eyes. So I'm sorry. She says he is swallowing his water now. He is swallowing the food because before they put it in his mouth and it would run down his face,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
now he's able to swallow. I mean, that's the most important thing that's going to happen in that kid's life because
yeah.
he's not going to get any better with that, right? That's central nervous system, baby.
That's it.
So,
That's right.
and then I came out to New Jersey, and when I came out to New Jersey, oh, I had studied, by the way, I'd studied Atlas orthogonal because that's what changed my life.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Right.
Dr. Detloff was not using the sweat instrument, but he was using a different instrument called the precision instrument. I bought three of them before I left because, believe it or not, each one was only $250 at that time. Handheld, right, with a
Right.
little uh, compass on the top. Not a compass, but a
Like a level.
thing where you can put your level. Thank you. Where you can put
Yeah.
the coordinates in. And what next? You asked me a question because I've
Well, I was just as you're sharing that, I mean, this kid's life, right? So 14 years not being able to just even enjoy a meal, right? I mean, like that's let alone the nutrients that can happen now
Right,
too. That because
right,
I guarantee after that there was more improvements because the body has its more nutrients. It's
right.
able to that you started them on a journey of getting better,
Yeah,
more well. But and that's really that's what the chiropractor is to do, right? Is that
yes,
someone comes in. This goes back to your story that you were sharing about earlier about the the goat doctor, right? So like when someone comes to us, comes to the office, then they need to leave better than when they came in.
whether
I
they
mean,
feel it yet or not.
right,
Right,
totally. But you know that when they leave,
right.
they are set up to express life the best that they can because they're in
Absolutely.
alignment, they're functioning, they are more optimal, right? And like, no matter what that exchange is, you may not even be adjusting them. Maybe they're holding, they don't need to be adjusted, but just even being in proximity
Right.
of you and you're encouraging them, like there's a lot that goes on there between patient and doctor where there's a relationship. And you mentioned earlier, there's kind of you didn't use this word, but I think that's it, is an intimacy
Yes.
that's there because you're in proximity and it's very I would almost say it's like a sacred place where it's like you're in their you're in their zone right here, man. And there's a connection and you literally are making connection if you're adjusting my hand, even setting them up on the all those things, helping them up, talking with them, sharing with them. I mean, you can't get around it. Like this is a life-giving purpose and path. That's where all of that, the intent, all this is culminated into the adjustment and that patient experience. And I think that's so key to not lose sight of that as you're progressing in your journey as a chiropractor, right? Like, because you don't, because you can get lost in the business world and looking
Right.
at patient visits and looking at profit and your P&L sheets and you're building your team and an associate, which are not bad things, just so long as you never lose sight of your why.
If you lose this, you've lost everything.
Yeah.
Now, out here, I met a Dr. Dubell, and he had been holding philosophy meetings for chiropractors in his office, and then he had brought other people in, Reggie Gold, Sid Williams never came down, but Sigafus and different people. And then I became his associate when I first moved here. And he said to me one day, he said, I'm thinking about making this bigger. Are you interested? And what am I going to say? Absolutely. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And
What
so
else could we do?
we started doing new beginnings. As a matter of fact, I started up the steps, and he said, we need a name. And I took about 2 steps, turned around, and I said, it is a new beginnings. And so we became New Beginnings for a New Future. Now we're just, strictly New Beginnings most of the time. We're That was 1991. We're still going. In fact, we're doing a weekend in Asbury Park in New Jersey this month, the 16th, 17th, 18th, something like that. And we do 3 of them a year. Right now, the people that I have met, some of them are in it for the dollar. They don't have this. They come to New Beginnings where it's philosophically orientated. Their lives change. Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you people from Canada. I can tell you people from Japan. People that have all come to New Beginnings because somebody said you got to be there.
Right.
And I've been part of that, and it's been a blessing because it keeps me going as well. We got to be around the right people, the people that
Right.
inspire us to
Right.
keep inspired so that we can do, because being your own boss and running your own practice, as you just mentioned, can be a downer.
it can be a bear. And who are you dealing with on a daily basis? You're dealing with people who have lost hope. They're not they're down they're downcast. So you're dealing with people that are suffering from depression and addictions and all kinds of things because of maybe a physical issues or maybe even emotional stuff. But we
Right,
talk about thoughts, traumas, toxins. So these people are
right,
bringing all this stuff in, and you're the release of those things a lot of times, right? And so all the more making sure that your head physically is on straight, but also like mentally and emotionally for the doctor. And
right.
so
When
it's
you
super
approach that
huge.
patient, that has to be it. You are in that zone right there. And if you start thinking about something going on in the front office, you start thinking about what do you want to do? Like I'm a sailor. Oh, it's time. Let's get the boat ready. If I go there, I'm not being of service. Now, if
Mhm.
you look at energy around the body, the energy coming off your head, according to their research, only goes out about a inch and a half. The energy that comes from your heart can goes out to like 3.5, 4 feet.
Hmm.
And you enter that energy every time you come up to a person. And once your energy and their energy mix, if you are really just thinking and feeling about them and about what you can do to assist them in their journey, then you can make your adjustments just full of life.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the way we work here.
I
My
love it.
wife is amazing. And right now she's doing most of the adjusting, right? And
So what would you say to I mean, we talked about making sure that you're around other people who get it, I guess you could
right,
say,
like
who have
you,
that passion, and right away when someone does, because you
right?
start to feel, even during our podcast now, like there's a connection, right? Because we have the same heartbeat, the same, there's similarities there. So obviously surrounding yourself with around people like that. What are some other things that you would recommend to keep the main thing?
Really find out what your purpose is. Why are you there? The why is so important, right? The
Hmm.
why is what guides you in everything in your life. Because otherwise you're just going, well, here. No, I don't know. Okay. So getting very, very clear on your why.
Hmm.
Because as you do that, when your energy comes into their field, I I teach them, where is it? Oh, it's right here. These things are dangerous. The energy coming off of cell phones, computers, anything electronic like that interferes with your energy once it gets inside your energy field. I can show it to anybody anytime with muscle testing because have them close their eyes. I muscle test them ahead of time, right? And remember, muscle testing, where a lot of people get concerned or get confused in muscle test. Well, it's just a muscle test. No, it is not. It is a feeling that comes about by your purpose. You have to go in there clear headed, as most upper cervical people that I've ever met are the most clear headed people I've ever known. You got to go in clear headed, and therefore you're going in as an investigator. What is going to happen in the muscle test? I can muscle test them. I can say, close your eyes. I take their phone. I can't use my phone because I got something on the back that dissipates that negative energy. I can take their phone and I can sit back here, muscle test them. And as I get in to where I'm about 3 feet away, boom, their arm goes down. Bring it back. Do it again. Their arm goes down. They don't even know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm bringing this energy into their energy and they don't mix. And that's why you
So
got to make sure that when you're in your office, phones off, phones put away,
Yeah.
get them out of here. No
Yeah.
watches that are electronic. Get them out of here because if you test for them, they will go weak.
So making sure that obviously, yes, you're in, surrounded by people that have the same heart. They're going to fire you up, and maybe vice versa, but also avoid certain things that create an environment that is less healthy, is that's the right
Absolutely.
word.
Absolutely.
That is counterproductive to what you're trying to do,
Right.
for the for the doctor too, though,
Yes.
right? You know,
Yeah.
what are some what
The
go ahead.
doctor has to be neutral,
Right.
always. Neutral in that he isn't going in to show this other person what he can do. He or she goes in to find out what that person needs to have done in order to move them into their next space.
More of a guide than anything
Yes,
else,
yes. You
right?
were starting to
Yeah.
ask me a question.
Well, I like the guide role though, real quick, because we've been talking about a journey, and every doctor has a journey into it, discovering their why, keeping
Right,
that passion, that fire, the main thing. But then there's other patients that they're on a health journey as well, and they're your guys' paths have crossed, and so making sure that that's why the neutrality there. You're really the guide in that situation to guide them along to the path on the path of wellness, right?
right.
And so keep that main thing the main thing, avoid these other these leeches, I will call them, right? Leeches for of passion, or leeches of results. But what else, this is what I was going to ask you, is what else do you see that can break down the doctor, break down the practice, and disrupt what is really the intent for the practice, if that makes sense.
You know what we're doing right now? Talking, right? You can
Yeah.
talk too much in your office with your patients,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can talk. It's so easy. See, there are those who are crystal clear about the conversation they're going to have, and then there are those that, what'd you do this weekend?
Mm, mm.
Because they want to make a friend. That you can have a friendship, but not try to make this person a friend because you're there to serve. Okay. So you have to be clear. You have to be on
Focus.
focus, right? And then you have to help them to stay on focus. If somebody comes in my office, right? And if they've been with me for a while, and maybe they come in and say, "Well, do you want me to tell you what's going on with me?" In my own little way, I say, if you must,
Sure.
you need to.
Sure.
I'm going to find it anyway. Oh, I know. All right, go ahead. Or they just gotta get that out and tell you what's going on with them. But they're just, I say, why do you want to talk about that, vomiting all over yourself and vomiting all over me with all this negativity? Let's make it positive. Let's do this.
So
Boy, that
focusing the conversation, keeping the conversations focused on what's most important,
right,
right? Avoiding negativity, right? Let's focus on, let's instead focus on results. Let's focus on moving forward. Let's focus on right thinking, right living, right?
right,
Right feeling, maybe even. So, yeah.
right. And if you want to talk nutrition to somebody, nothing wrong with talking nutrition. If you can guide them, if you can see that they are doing something that they shouldn't be doing, well, guide them. You
Yeah.
can guide them into exercises that are appropriate so that they don't damage what you have just helped them to get right.
Absolutely.
Right? You could teach them about posture if you need to, in order to get them to sit right instead of getting here in front of the computer like this. That's going to throw them out every single time.
Mhm.
Right? So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, I think the real thing is just be real. right? Be real with the patients as far as what you're there to accomplish with and for them. They came to you for a reason. I doubt that very many people walked in that door to become your friend. Right?
They're
Oh,
looking for
I heard
results.
about him. I want to be his friend or her friend. No, no. If they become friends, that's one thing. Because
Right.
I have a lot of friends that are patients,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Sure, you do. All of us do. And that
Yeah.
enlightens ourselves, our being.
Right.
But at the same time, that also helps to enlighten them because of who we are, what we
Yeah.
present to them, the energy that we share with them, and how we think about things. People come in the office and say, "Hey, Doc, how are you?" Fabulous. That's my word. I'm fabulous. And they say, "You're always fabulous." I says, "Yes, it's a state of mind." It is easy enough to say, "Oh, I hurt here, I hurt there," because I'm like you. I got aches and pains, but I only want to be fabulous. Every now and then I might say, "Oh, Dick, how are you?" "Well, I'm doing okay." What? You're always fabulous. And I said, "I just want to see if you're listening."
Yeah, right. They're holding you accountable.
That's right. So, those, I think you being real within your own personality is so important because sometimes we try to be real in somebody else's idea
Mm,
and somebody else's personality. Oh,
yeah.
they were so great. I listened to them. Oh, I want to talk like. No, learn, put it into you and let it come out and grow within you, that you can share you in a different manner.
It needs to be congruent. That's what I
Yes,
always
I
say.
like
Is it
that word. That's a big
needs
word. Where'd you learn
needs to
that?
it needs to be congruent with who you are, right?
That's right.
Like, whether
Right.
that be in person, whether it be how you come off, because what part of our world is online marketing and stuff. So all your marketing and your website and in person, your patient education, all these things need to be congruent with who you are, what you do. It's back to your why again.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. What one last thing before we
Yes.
wrap up here. What would you say to a doc that's listening right now and they f- they feel there's a disconnect. That there's something that's a little bit off. Maybe they're not as clear on the why. Maybe they're frustrated in practice with not having that same fire. We'll call it that same passion. What would you say to a doc that's going through that and what they can do about that?
Find somebody that is doing the thing that you think you want to do or feel that you want to do. Spend time with them, whether it's individually. Like, this has been really good. You and me talking here. I really like your attitude. I like what you are able to get out of what I'm saying, if it makes sense, right? And then you get me over here when you need to, right? So we got to be around those kind of people. That may mean individually. I know I see the word God right there, unless it's abbreviated someplace on right behind your head,
That's
right?
it.
Go there, you go. God is good. If you're spiritual, spend time within your spirituality because you know you can look at a flower and you see how that flower and every flower from those seeds are alike. And then you look at a different seed and a different flower and it's got a different purpose and they're alike. We're the same thing. But we have a mind that wants to explore, so we don't just grow up to be like that. Okay, like I'm very different from my brother. May he rest in peace. But I was very different than him. In fact, it's so funny. I had a picture. My wife said we're going to rejoin Costco. All right. So they took a picture of me. I had dark glasses on and a hat on. I never thought I looked like my brother. And I got my card. I found my card the other day and I looked, gosh, I sure look like Robert. So I sent that picture to my sister and my favorite cousin. And I said, look at this picture I found of Robert with his dark glasses on so that nobody could read his eyes and see what's going on. He was a manipulator of people. He liked to control people. And so my sister says, well, that's you, isn't it? Oh, if it's, yeah, it could be Robert. My cousin goes, evil. I said, what do
Oh,
you
you're
mean evil? She says, that's what he was about. I says, great. Do you realize that was me?
like, that was me, man.
Right. So what the essence is that you share and put out is going to come back. It's going to roll with you and roll within you and the people around you. You got to be a leader of happiness, a leader of goodness, a leader of purity, a leader of those things that are going to make the world a better place. You have a big
Absolutely.
job.
Absolutely. And I would say this too. So what you mentioned is really community. Making sure that you find the right community. And I just got back from a NUCA conference a couple days ago, and the amount of I was even talking to one doc, and he's like, one of the best things about these, if not the best, sometimes is just the conversations I have with other professionals that are here, right? The other people I'm interacting with
Absolutely.
outside of the classes, you know, and not to say that we minimize the classroom learning, but there's we sometimes we just need to we need more fuel on the fire, man. Sometimes we need
Yes,
someone to listen. Maybe you're the one that needs to be pouring out into another doctor too, right? So like having that community, being mentored, mentoring somebody else, the connection, that's if you're feeling stuck, I'd encourage if you're a doc that's feeling stuck and that passion's waning, or you've kind of lost your purpose and kind of a what am I doing, or even you're considering throwing in the towel, which I know happens, and the business has been sucking that out of you or whatever. I encourage you, don't just if you're living on an island and trying to do this, get back it
get a
plugged into
boat.
somebody. Get a boat, get off the island. Right? Maybe it's a conference, maybe it's a phone call,
Right.
maybe it's reaching out to, who back to people that you went to school with or whatever it is. Connect with somebody, reach out, because you're not alone in the struggle of that. You've mentioned staying fabulous. Well, that takes effort, that takes discipline in a lot of ways, because bad still happens. It's about how you deal with it.
That's
And
right.
so other people have gone through that junk too. And so, connect with others.
You
You're not
know,
alone.
when
Don't be
people,
alone, because when you're alone, that's where the weights can really
right,
just
right,
weigh on you.
right. Now, you can't see these, but I read this at our candlelight closing. I've had the honor and privilege to read BJ's last words. A lot of people
Mm,
don't believe in BJ and all of that, but I think BJ, he really created this his dad, but I read this. We close in a candlelight closing in New Beginnings on Sunday, and I have the honor of reading BJ's last words. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I think you're on time, but I'd like to just read the last little paragraph here.
mhm.
Something we've all heard, but sometimes we don't keep it. We need to keep it. Is that okay? Time is of the essence. May God flow from above down his bounteous strengths, courage, and understanding to carry on. And may your innate receive and act on that free flow of wisdom from the above down, inside out, for you have in your possession a sacred trust. Guard it well. Boy, I love reading this.
Does that not sum up what we were just talking about?
Absolutely.
We should have just started with that and ended with, here you go. Enough said.
Enough said. You've been a fabulous host and leader of this thing. I hope that your partner there does well with his body, and I'm glad you kept this going because you know, it was good. Good for you, good for me, and hopefully good for people that are going to watch this someday.
That's right. I appreciate it. I feel the same way, Doc. It's been great to have you on here. Great to meet you, and know we got some awesome docs out there in Jersey, taking care of
Yes.
people. Right. That's it. That's it. Absolutely. And so thank you for being on here and joining us. And thank you for those who have watched and listened in here. You know that our heart is for you. We want to see you grow in all the ways that you need. And so be reaching out to us if you need us. If you've got questions and follow-ups, we've got notes notes in the posts here, so you can feel free to reach out for any assistance on that. So as I always say, go team upper cervical.
Go. I love it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye bye.